Welcome to something special. Welcome to TEDx. This TEDx event is part of a global conversation that takes place every day in every corner of the world. In schools, in theaters, in workplaces, even in prisons, people gather to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. More than 3,000 TEDx events are held every year in 170 countries. It's a remarkable thing. TEDx events are self-organized under a license from TED, a non-profit organization devoted to discovering and sharing powerful ideas in the form of TED Talks. It's not TED itself, but your local TEDx team of volunteers that has done all the work to put on today's event, including booking all of the speakers. It's this team's ideas, dedication, and time that have made this possible. We really hope today's program sparks an exciting conversation. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you will take out. And now, on with the show.
Good morning, amazing individuals. I'm delighted to welcome you to the TEDxHagerstownWomen event. What an incredible morning we're going to have, learning from and connecting with 7 fantastic and diverse women. Our theme today is 2 steps forward. What a fabulous theme as we celebrate those who have taken bold strides in their futures and those working tirelessly to make big dreams become a reality. Just a few housekeeping announcements before we get started. Please know that we're all about recording of these presentations for inclusion on the national TED platform. With that in mind, please stay in your seats while speakers are presenting. Also, refrain from taking photos while speakers are presenting as well. All sounds will be picked up by the recording equipment, so please no talking to your neighbors, even though that may sound like a great thing to do. No talking to your neighbors during the recording. You are, however, encouraged to engage with the speaker, with your heartfelt applause, with your contagious laughter, and with your sincere cheering. If you need to leave the auditorium, please do so between speakers. Once the recording of the speakers begins, you'll not be allowed to be back in until that specific recording ends. You are welcome to bring drinks into the auditorium, and we invite you to be fully present. Put those cell phones away, perhaps. Open your ears and open your hearts. If you've not done so already, you're welcome to scan the QR code if you'd like to access today's program and follow along with our event. 2 steps forward. What a fabulous theme that is. Our purpose today is to inspire new conversation, spark ideas in both women and girls as we walk forward with confidence and advance equality for all women. So sit back, relax, and be inspired. Have you ever wondered why you're presented with certain opportunities at certain times in your life? Our first speaker, Dr. Gloria Hill-Murray, just knows there's something divine at work in her world, and that she's here today because someone needs to hear her message. She's been called to live out her purpose, and that purpose clearly defines her. Please help me welcome Dr. Gloria Hill-Murray with a resilient response to abuse. For that smile.
Life can dish you out. Frustration, disappointment, and pain. For example, being raised in a household until the age of 13 with no running water or a bathroom, 2 steps backwards. Being in a home with an alcoholic father, watching him commit infidelity on your mother while physically and emotionally abusing her in front of you. Being in a home, being abused by your father and isolated from the world. and never feeling like you were going to amount to anything. Getting a scholarship to go away to college, only to find yourself pregnant, on the streets, homeless, and alone. Did you know that 1 out of every 4 girls in the United States of America will have experienced abuse by the age of 18? It was surprising to me when I looked at the stats and realized that my sisters and I were 4 of them. The cost of abuse is a real deal that can cause depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, trust issues, relationship problems. Did you also know that 91% of the perpetrators are people that they know? The face of this problem is in all communities, regardless of economic status, race, or religion. Here is my story, and you might have one too. When I was a little girl, I used to be afraid to go to sleep at night. And I would look out the window up at the stars in the sky, and I would say, whoever is holding the stars in the sky, please watch over me, my sisters, and my family. And as I said, abuse has a cost. And did you know that the total lifetime economic burden of child sexual abuse in the United States of America is estimated at $9.3 billion? Adult survivors often struggle with processing what they survived as a child, and often exhibit symptoms of emotional symptoms and psychological symptoms and physical symptoms, to include toxic relationships, poor choices of friends, and patterns of self-sabotage. The research also suggests that the different types of traumatic experiences may affect people differently based on how severe those situations were, and it also determines how empathetic they will be as adults, meaning being concerned about others who are hurting. How did I make it out, and how can you make it out? I went on a drive to grow spiritually and discovered that yes, it was a part of my story. And yes, it is a part of my history. But it no longer has to be me, and it no longer has to be you. No more chains holding me, and no more chains holding you. Who the Son sets free is free indeed. Two steps forward. I can remember when I was 8.5 months pregnant and I was alone. And a Christian woman took me in off the streets and allowed me to live with her. I used to walk to work every day, to and from work every day, because I couldn't afford a car at the time. And one day when I was walking to work, I had a pink maternity shirt on and blue jean maternity pants. And I was crossing a railroad track. And I was thinking to myself, how did I get to this place in my life? Then all of a sudden, I heard a voice deep down in my soul say, you will never repeat your steps again, but you have to keep on stepping. And wherever the sole of your feet tread, I will bless. Have I not commanded you to be strong and to be of good courage, and don't be afraid, for the Lord thou God will be with you wherever you go. You see, I believe it was at that moment, when I heard those words at that moment, was the first star of hope for me. You see, it was the one who held the stars in the sky. All those nights I cried out as a little girl, whoever holds the stars in the sky, please watch over me, my sisters, and my family. My second star of hope was my child, who lit up my pathway and gave me the strength to push my way through the dark. My third stars were close friends who held my hand and helped me to walk my way out of the dark into the light. My fourth stars were clergymen and women who guided me along the way until I was able to see the woman I was meant to be, you see. My fifth stars were coaches and counselors and it was spiritual leaders, you see. It was everyone in the community that stood up for me. 2 steps forward. What can a community do to help women in our community that are acting out the cost of abuse? Be the community that will walk and talk and share hope with those, to help them walk their way out of the dark into the light. A safe place, a safe star that will take them by the hand, not judge them, but look at them and understand their pain. Women, you can keep stepping forward and believe that as you keep stepping forward, there will be a star on your pathway in the community that will help you continue the way. Women, don't be as concerned about the 2 steps forward as celebrating the many steps you take along the way. Because it's in those steps where you gain courage. It's in those steps where you gain strength. It's in those steps where you gain perseverance and resiliency to help you continue the way. And one day, you'll look up like I did, and you'll notice not only have you taken 2 steps forward, but you have taken many, many more. Abuse has a cost, but freedom from it has rewards too. You can choose freedom today and show up in this world being whoever you want to be, doing whatever you want to do, and becoming whatever you want to become. You see, that's what freedom has done for me and what freedom can do for you, because my Redeemer heals the brokenhearted and he sets the captive man free. And I am a living witness of that today. They say, research says, that women that have an abusive background have a deeper level of effective empathy, cognitive empathy, social skills, where you care about the hurt of others. Today, I challenge my stars in the community, you. For when you see someone who is being abused, it's important to be that shining star by providing a lending hand and to create a safe place for them to feel safe with you and to help them find their voice. Today, I challenge those who have been abused or being abused to go and look yourself in the mirror and give yourself permission to emerge despite your past or present situation. Thank you, Lord. Every place that the sole of your foot shall tread upon, you shall have, because you're trusting beyond what this world alone could ever offer you. There is no mountain too high or valley too low. You can't overcome when you give yourself permission to emerge. Sometimes, your past is your future purposes. Now, I have a gift that I would like to leave with you, and that is, give yourself permission to emerge. Explore the community that surrounds you, that's there to help you bloom. Look around the community for friends, life coaches, ministers, clergy leaders, spiritual leaders that you can safely connect with during your blooming process. Remember that abuse is not a life sentence, but a life filled with opportunities to turn your pain into gain by emerging into the beautiful, bold, and bright women that you are. Remember, the way you start is not the way you finish. It's not the way you have to finish, you see. It is not in your own strength that you'll be able to do this. It will take the one who holds the stars in the sky working through the community to stop abuse. And it will take the one who holds the stars above to heal it. Because he is the light of the world, and he who follows him will not walk in darkness, but walk in the light of life. Finally, I want to leave with you what my Aunt Bunk left with me, and that is, look towards the light, and the shadow of darkness will fall behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Murray, for your words that reflect the importance of resilience, hope, and seeing the light. It's obvious in looking around in this auditorium that we're all in different seasons of our life. Our next speaker is convinced that by living our own life, our best life, aligning with our spirit, and always being curious, we can lead a fulfilled life. We as women can lean into advocacy and create a space for other women, for sure. Please help me welcome the incredible Naima Khalifa Baruku to the stage. More Than Mother.
When a little girl is born, before she comprehends who she is in the world, a seed is sown. An innocent, loving gesture in the form of a gift is placed in her arms. With little dexterity to take grip, she's given a baby doll. A blueprint of her identity is beginning to take shape of what is expected of her. In an instant, she is going to understand what is expected of her. She learns that caregiving as a mother is a role assumed of her. So what happens when the baby girl grows up to be a woman and is rendered unable to bear children? I am her, and it hurts. It hurts to stand here and not have answers to questions that I have struggled with for 5,610 days. I know a lot about patience and hope for unfulfilled desires of the heart. You see, I have had time to reflect on my life. I have had time to contemplate on who I am. I have had time to battle with questions about fate that have thrust me into a tug of war between will and surrender, tussling with what I think I have control over and what I do not, tugging on ground that feels like quicksand. 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps down. 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps down. I know a lot about resilience and powering through, and frankly, I'm tired of the tugging. My hands are splintered, and I have callous hands from pulling on hope like a hangnail, and it has been painful for 134,640 hours. It was June 3rd, 2008, when my daughter died. It was June 3rd, 2008, when my daughter died. And it has been painful. And it's not easy for me to be up here. The words escape me as I stand up here. And I wish I could remember the next word that comes in my line. But the pain has overcome me. In feeling the absence and the reality of the fact that I am not a mother. I stand here before you, wanting to freeze and run away. And freezing and running away is what I've done over and over for many years. I wanted to hide and bury myself in a corner because I just do not have the words to explain to you why I am not a mother. The pressure to show up every day, putting on a good face, is something that I'm used to doing. For everyone, for everything. And I know I'm standing here in my vulnerability, not just for a TED Talk. I'm standing in my vulnerability because there are tens and thousands of women just like me and families just like me who have been thrust in the tug of war of trying to find who they are, trying to learn what it means to be a woman. In my pursuit of motherhood, I underwent a life-saving procedure as I carried my daughter in utero, whose death was imminent. A procedure that is a political debate. In my pursuit of motherhood, I sought fertility treatments steeped in access and privilege, with the words failed for unfavorable outcomes, which made me feel like a failure. In my pursuit of motherhood, cancer riddled my body. Its life-saving treatments robbed me of what remained of hope and fulfilling the role of mother. I stand before you in my pain with thousands, if not millions, of child-free women who, like me, are treading in murky waters, with mending broken hearts and feeling like a shell of themselves because they're not able to have a child, never making it back to shore, stuck on a lonely island. It is in my experience of being childless that I've had to confront, decode, and unlearn what it means to be a woman. Lost in the web of identities impressed upon me, I was committed to the conditioning of what society told me was the pinnacle of success for a woman in birthing a child. I languished while grappling with an identity that did not fit my reality in spaces absent of empathy and belonging for the childless. My spiritual, mental, and emotional health suffered and crumbled under the pressure to fit a definition of woman that tied my purpose through a binary lens couched in ableism, patriarchy, religion, capitalism, and politics. If not mother, then who am I? I've asked myself this question an infinite number of times. Who will care for me as I age? Who will inherit my things? Beneficiaries, wills. What will be my legacy if my DNA stops with me? Trapped in feeling that I had to excel in everything to prove that I had worth. A distraction from the fact that I cannot produce a child. Do you see me? Am I invisible to you? Do you see me? Am I invisible to you? All too often ask the question, when are you going to have a baby? With follow-ups of, what are you doing? What have you tried? Which led to a flurry of, just do this and that, which led to a flurry of, at least, when they realized I did not have the answer. And then a chorus of sorries and offers of prayers as the final off-ramp, all unsolicited, all projecting actions on me to fix, all implying that I alone was not enough, that I was incomplete, that something was missing, that I was depreciating with time. Constant poking fingers into deep wounds. My healing work has affirmed that my inherent worth is not tied to just birthing a child. Childless women are whole just as we are. Even when we're shattered by our reality, pregnant with fears and feelings of inadequacy injected in us over and over again. We labor in life in our own ways, having to find new meaning and building a new vision for ourselves. My healing work has affirmed that my inherent worth is not tied to birthing a child. I am now nourished by a healthier fountain of hope that disrupts the notion that childless women are less, and women are more because of what their wombs bore. And I say this while believing in the sacredness of mothering. I believe that the innate divinity sewed into women, making us the magical beings that we are, did not do so solely for birthing what comes from between our hips. I believe that we have limitless capacity to birth from our hearts, our minds, our hands, our spirits, above and beyond the narrow scope of our understanding, thus exceeding our wildest imaginations. Even with this consciousness, my heart still grieves, not filling my womb with a heartbeat that turned into 5-finger pinky grabs. And I know I lack nothing because of it. And I do not know if I will ever stop grieving this loss. I long for the day when I will be able to fully accept that my road to motherhood may end in the land of never. But I have chosen not to martyr myself in pursuit of motherhood anymore. Women are more than mothers. We always were, and we always will be. The childless are invaluable contributors to the fabric of our society as aunties, sisters, daughters, friends, wives, and more. The landscape of our lives and place in this world is vast. I say this to you, and I ask of you this. Is it possible to have a fulfilled life even when the story doesn't end in the way that you imagine? Is it possible to experience contentedness despite life's disappointments? Is it still possible to experience abundance and peace of mind without children of your own? Yes, absolutely. And as I try to reframe, I choose to move forward. And I do so with conviction that I am more than a mother. I refuse to be swallowed by self-loathing. Instead, I choose to embrace joy while wrestling with hope. Do you know the courage it takes to live a life counter status quo, whether by choice or by circumstance? As the childless and the child-free carve out pockets of delight and joy and tranquility, I offer these tokens of wisdom. Do not force people to answer questions on why they do not have children. Do not add to the grief of the childless who are still tugging on hope. Do not belittle families who have chosen to fully cultivate a beautiful life being child-free. Your anticipated joy in experiencing a child through us could contribute to feelings of guilt. Nothing is an easy fix. All the unsolicited advice we've already explored, and if we haven't, that's our prerogative. We've tried to pray everything you wish for us into existence. Our reality is not an atonement for something we've done wrong, nor is it evidence of something we could have done better. It is not an atonement for something we have done wrong, nor is it evidence of something we could have done better. Your inability to accept our childlessness is not our problem. It's hard enough to accept it for ourselves. Do not think that we are selfish. Our time is not yours because we've chosen to live a life full of joy in lieu of having a child. Shouldn't we be able to do this without shame? And two things can exist at once. Our relation for families expanding outside of our own, while at the same time feeling the sting of grief for ourselves. So do not hide your joy from us. Invite us to the celebratory events, but give us the choice to say no without explanation. Because this is where we're triggered the most. It isn't personal. For some of us, our desire may never go away. For some of us, our desire may never go away, but we're trying to move forward. We already know that we would be amazing parents. We reflected on that often. Reminding us of this constantly does not make us feel any better. We still believe in miracles, even if our story did not end with one. Our miracle may be in being able to feel the void without needing to fill the void. The childless recognize that societal expectations and norms may forever elude us, as will the antiquated perception of women. We have traversed societal expectations and personal hardships to emancipate ourselves as we discover a new vision for ourselves. And for those who have gone on the transformative journey of motherhood and have become mothers, don't you know that you are more than a mother too? Remember this. You are a multifaceted individual with immeasurable worth. And for those who have chosen another path in lieu of parenthood, you are more than enough too. As I boldly declare, I am more than mother, I extend this declaration to my fellow childless and child-free women, affirming that we are more than mothers and more than enough. Let us stand united, celebrating the diverse tapestry of womanhood. Let us recognize the inherent value that each of us brings to the world. Together, we acknowledge our intrinsic worth and forge ahead, embracing a future where all women are seen, valued, and empowered to define their own narratives beyond mother. Thank you.
So how grateful we are, Naima, for your message of the importance of purposeful living and giving to others. Thank you. What might you identify as one of your special talents? We all know that we are unique with one-of-a-kind fingerprints. We all have gifts and we all have talents to share. Our next dynamic speaker, Ellie Harvey, believes that she was born to be a public speaker. And I think you'll agree as you listen well to her words of wisdom. Let's enthusiastically welcome Ellie Harvey to the TEDx stage. And her presentation, Can You Lose Your Talent?
Thank you. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. I've always had a love for music, especially singing. After I would come home from daycare when I was a little kid, I would sing to my mom in the car these little songs. She'd be like, where'd you learn that? Right from the beginning, I was a singing little bird. I would sing in the car, on walks, and I would belt out every song I knew in the bathtub. When I recognized I had this talent for singing, my dream was to be like Taylor Swift. When I told my mom about this dream, she immediately was all for it. She also informed me that Taylor Swift knew how to play the piano. I told my mom, no, Taylor Swift plays the guitar. But I learned once you know how to play the piano, you can play any instrument. So at the age of 4, I began my journey of uncovering my talent. I took piano lessons, and even in 2020, I would have lessons via Zoom with my aunt who is a pianist. After a while, I told my mom, hey, I'm getting pretty good on the piano, and she was happy the lessons were helpful for me. But I found out from my mom that Taylor Swift also takes voice lessons. Ugh, more lessons? Yes, I started taking voice lessons once a week, and I must say, I am very glad they were private. I will give you a little sneak peek of what I was doing in voice lessons. This is what I call a dying moose. Oh! I know, right? All the famous opera singers do it, and it was a helpful exercise. I also learned that a great entertainer knows how to dance. So, even more lessons, dance and gymnastics. Have you ever noticed when someone is asked, what is your talent? They answer you with a skill. When someone is asked, what is your skill? They answer you with a talent. Is there any difference, or are they the same? A talent is your natural ability. You're born with it. A skill is a learned ability that you develop over time. And in fact, the Webster's Dictionary officially defines skill as a developed aptitude or ability, a learned power of doing something competently. Talent is defined as the natural endowments of a person or mental power. Skills are what enable a person to use their talent. Skills take work, and it's not always easy. But once you recognize your talent, the work to uncover your talent is actually fun. You know it's for a purpose. And did you ever think that your natural gifts and your learned abilities are your power? Now it was time to entertain my talent. After all of these lessons, I could finally put them to use. I used to live in Washington, D.C., and I loved going to church, especially for the singing. One day, I went up to the pastor and I asked him, hey, could I be on the worship team? He looked over my head and told my mom, not even me, oh, we'll be starting a children's choir soon. 3 weeks later, I asked him again, hey, when's the children's choir going to start? He said soon. I asked him, well, how long is soon? And he just didn't answer me. Did you know Carrie Underwood started singing in her church when she was 3 years old? I hoped that since DC was a big city, someone might take a chance and invest in me, even though I was only 6. 5 weeks later, no news about the children's choir, so I moved on. When we moved to Western Maryland, we started going to a church in Hagerstown. We actually knew the pastor and his family. And one day, I went up to the pastor and I asked him, hey, could I be on the worship team? He gave a little chuckle and said, when you're older. I asked him, how old do I have to be? And he just didn't really answer me. A couple weeks later, I asked him again, hey, how old do I have to be? To be on the worship team? And he just didn't answer me. A year later, we went to our first revival at a different church, and a family band was doing the worship leading. I told my mom, hey, there's a girl my age singing, so can I sing? This made my mom kind of nervous, and she said, later, honey. But then the band sat down for a break, and the pastor said, can we sing this just one more song? The band, however, was caught a little off guard and said, we actually haven't practiced that one. So the pastor looks at everyone in the church and says, does anybody know this song? And my mom says, Ellie does. Excuse me, over here. Excuse me, right here. Excuse me, yes, right here. Excuse me, yes, Pastor Ellie does. Excuse me. For your information, I had never heard this song in my entire life. But the pastor calls my name, and I went on stage, and somehow I sang this song. It was the first time I did a solo in public, and I thought I did a pretty good job. The worship leader thought I did a pretty good job, too, and she said, do you want to keep singing? So I said, how about tomorrow? So I performed a special music song the next day, and things took off from there. I've now performed many times. Dance recitals on stage at the Maryland Theater, singing in the Library of Congress with the Librarian of Congress standing and clapping in the front row. I have medals and trophies from gymnastics routines. But my favorite opportunity so far has been singing in church. I've even had a couple of gigs where I was invited to perform special music at a church I didn't even go to regularly. I remember one time I laid on my bed one afternoon when I was 9, and I thought about my journey and how my mom and dad have helped me become who I am today. They pushed me to my limits, encouraging me all the way. Sometimes the best helping hand you can give is a good, firm push. Shortly after I started singing in church, I stopped. It felt like there was a boulder in my throat. And some Sundays, I didn't even want to stand when the worship started, much less lead worship. My mom and dad both noticed and tried to make me go sing on stage, but I made up an excuse to go watch my sister in the nursery. It was then I realized, when you recognize you have a talent, you're going to face an obstacle. You're going to face challenges as big as boulders. But to be able to share your talent and inspire others to share their talent, you must overcome these things. This is a reason I know talent is something you are born with. It is a natural ability unique to you, like a fingerprint. Something special that only you can share with the world. Doesn't it make sense? The world seems to run on money and power. And the power-hungry and greedy people want to have it all. Be expectant that when you are to uncover your unique talent, something, either a person or a problem, is going to want to smash your power. We need to persevere. We need to push through. When that boulder got in my throat trying to keep me from entertaining my talent and sharing it, my mom and dad kept asking, encouraging, and pushing me. But their pushing was annoying. And instead of getting me back to where I had prepared to be, I was allowing a good push to stop me from what I knew I loved. When that boulder got in my throat, it was tiny at first, like a little scratch, and I could clear it if I tried. But I noticed it would return, and when I didn't clear it, right away it grew. Suddenly a month passed, I hadn't practiced singing or piano, my notebook of songs was lost somewhere in the garage. And like I said, when people who loved me noticed, it was annoying. But not as annoying as the fear of realizing that my talent was suddenly buried. And the scary part of that was, if it was buried, was it lost and dead? Or could I uncover it? Can you lose your talent? This is the idea I'm sharing today. The unique talent that you're born with cannot be lost. It is your natural ability, and the world needs you to share it. I had to make a decision. This took strength, but it also took time. I wasn't born with a boulder in my throat, remember? I was born a singing little bird. It gives me a lot of joy to sing, and I've worked very hard. I don't want to let my hard work and years of waiting for an opportunity go to waste. My talent is my unique power. So today I want to ask, what is it that you bring to the world that you need to uncover or recover? Something special that you put away when an obstacle came against you. Maybe you got too busy. Maybe you became a mom. Maybe school or work at the most of your time. Or maybe it goes back to some time when you were my age and someone laughed at you or said you weren't good enough. Talent is not supposed to be covered up. It should be used, invested, and spent, not saved for a rainy day. Recognize today that your talent is power, and it's never too late to uncover it. So after all this, I figured out I can't be Taylor Swift. I can only be me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie, for genuinely reminding us to stir up the passion and excitement inside, to step forward and really elevate our work every day to make a difference. So we are going to take a short break from our in-person speakers to listen to a TED Talk with Eve Blake. Sit back and enjoy this fun, lively talk by playwright Eve, and consider embracing your own unbridled enthusiasm. And by the way, there will be audience participation in this one, so stay tuned.
4 years ago, a teenage girl changed my life in one conversation. She was 13 years old, she was a friend's little cousin, and she casually told me that she had met the man she was going to marry. So I said, okay, tell me about him. And she told me that his name was Harry Styles. So I laughed a little like you, and then she said, I know you don't think I'm serious, but I'm actually going to be with him because I love him so much that I would slit someone's throat to be with him. And that was the moment that I became obsessed with fangirls. I didn't know it then, but that moment would transform the course of my life and go on to change everything that I thought I knew about being an adult, being a woman, and being truly happy. But before we get started, what is a fangirl? And what is a Harry Styles? Well, according to the dictionary, the Merriam-Webster dictionary, a fangirl is a girl or woman who is an extremely or overly enthusiastic fan of someone or something. Technically, you can have fangirls of anything, but my specific interest was in fangirls of boy bands because of their somewhat lethal reputation. I remember my dad had told me this story of some Beatles fans in the 60s who apparently had torn a parked BMW to literal pieces because the band had supposedly just been sat in it. In the 60s, the Beatles were the biggest boy band on the planet. But when I met this girl in 2015, the biggest boy band on the planet was none other than One Direction. And Harry Styles was a member of One Direction. Harry Styles was reputed for his compassionate demeanor and perfect hair. I learned this when I read thousands of tweets about him. I learned that he is a sweet cupcake. I learned that he is a perfect angel. I learned that one time he vomited on the side of a freeway in California and that within 2 hours, fans had turned the site of the vomit into a sacred shrine. I scroll through fan-made paintings of Harry, baby photos of him, paintings of baby photos of him. I watch videos that show me how to make DIY love totems for Harry. For example, a lampshade covered in photos of his face, or a key ring that states the exact time of his birth. I read hours of fan fiction, and I fall down this specific rabbit hole of stories that actually place me as a protagonist inside of various imagined romances with him. So in one, I tell him that I'm pregnant with his child. In another, we meet in hospital where we're both fighting cancer. And in another, we fall so deeply in love that we become fugitives who kill people. But then, something unthinkable happens. One Direction, the biggest boy band on the planet, loses a member. Zayn Malik quits the band, and the internet explodes with feels. I read tweets as these girls describe the physical pain of this loss, how they can't eat or sleep or walk. I read them describe how much Zayn had meant to them, and I watch videos of 10-year-old girls crying. But like really crying. And then I watch as people repost these videos, but with new titles that contain words like crazy and creepy and insane. And suddenly my YouTube sidebar contains compilation, fans react to Zayn leaving, psycho alert. Then I watch as mainstream news outlets cover the story. I read them describe these young banshees. I read one journalist say, it's a commonly known fact since the age of the Beatles that there is nothing scarier in this world than a group of excited teenage girls. And then I ask myself a question I've never considered in my life. Why is it that the image of young girls screaming their lungs out with excitement for a pop star is considered crazy, psycho, scary, a bit much? But the image of young boys screaming their lungs out for a footballer is perfectly normal. Boys crying at the footy, that's the love of the game. Girls crying at a Justin Bieber concert, that's pathetic. And as soon as I realised this double standard, I realised that all of my curiosity about fangirls had been sparked by exactly the same judgments. I too had suspected that they were a bit crazy. I'd looked at images of girls screaming for the Beatles, the Backstreet Boys, One Direction, and the word that had come to mind was not excitement, but hysteria. And what I did not know was the history of that word. That in the 19th century, hysteria was considered to be a legitimate female mental disorder that could be diagnosed by doctors if women displayed excessive emotion or difficult behaviour. The word hysterical comes from the Latin word hystericus, meaning of the womb, because it was thought that this condition was caused by a dysfunction of the uterus. And so, a treatment for hysteria was a hysterectomy, which is what we still call a removal of the womb. And at this point, I decide to redeclare my obsession, because I am no longer just obsessed with fangirls. Now I'm obsessed with the way that the world talks about fangirls and the way that the world looks at young female enthusiasm. Because I want to know, if girls grow up in a world where words like crazy and psycho and hysterical are casually used to describe female enthusiasm, then how does that shape the way that those girls get to see themselves? And if the girls grow up in a world that tells them that they are designed just a bit crazier than the boys, then isn't that a little bit like telling them that they are born less capable of rationality than men, less capable of reason, and unworthy of the same intellectual respect as their brothers? Separately, I become obsessed with female screams. Not in a creepy way. I'm talking about like those shrieks and squeals that fangirls let out at concerts. I want to know why it is that some people instinctively flinch when I merely describe the sound, like it's painful just to think about it. Then I meet Amy Hume. She's a voice coach. And she blows my mind because she tells me that the female voice between the ages of 11 and 13 is one of the most interesting things to study. Why? Because there's this research by Carol Gilligan that says that is the age when girls begin to perform and alter their voices. For example, adding breath for maturity, or adding vocal fry for apathy. But tell me, according to this research, when do you reckon that boys began to perform and alter their voices? Now, I guessed 18 because men mature later, right? Wrong. The answer was 4 years old. Because that is when boys learn not to cry or squeal, that those are not manly sounds. And that's when I realised that a fangirl shriek is therefore like a superpower. Because it's this fearless and honest expression of pure celebration and joy. And it's a sound they have not forgotten how to make. I actually reckon that fangirls have a second superpower, because they know how to do something that most of my adult friends have no idea how to do. Fangirls know how to love something without apology or fear. My years of researching fangirls culminated in this determination to write something that celebrates and vindicates them. So I decided to make this thriller comedy musical that sounds like a Beyonce concert meets rave meets church. I called it Fangirls, and I designed it like a Trojan horse. So it appears to make fun of these young women, only to like smuggle them into your heart. Thanks. At one point, a girl sings, "Why should I hide my feelings? Because they annoy you? Or because it isn't what the boys do?" And as a former fangirl cynic, that is the question that I want to leave you all with. Why should fangirls tone it down? Because they're crazy? Or because our definition of reasonable is based on what it is acceptable for men to do? What if we rethink the judgments we've been conditioned to feel when we see young women screaming their lungs out with excitement? What if we decided to rethink the words we use to describe that joy? And what if we didn't allow ourselves to diminish girls with words that undermine their intelligence, their interests, and their capability? Because according to my research, they are capable of building a shrine to Harry Styles' vomit on the side of a freeway within 2 hours. That takes some executive skills in logistics and communication. If that isn't capable, I don't know what is. I reckon instead of judging fangirls, we can learn from them. We can all die tomorrow, so why not love things while we're still breathing? And with that, I'd like to ask you all to try something with me. Can I get you all to stand up? Stand up if you can, stand up. All right, so here's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna count to 3, and when I finish, I'm gonna ask every single one of you to let out your very best fangirl scream. Yep, here is why I am asking you to do this. Because if all 5 or so thousand of you do this and really commit, we all get our first chance to hear that sound and to decide that it is not a crazy sound. It is a hopeful sound. So should we do this? I said, should we do this? All right, okay, now I am going to cheat and I'm not gonna go full volume because I'm mic'd and we don't wanna hear that. But it means you all have to go 110%. You ready? Okay, take a deep breath with me. Think of someone you love. Let's go. 1, 2, 3. You all just sounded stunning and as sane and as intelligent and as dignified as when you walked in this room. Thank you.
What a fun and engaging opportunity, right? So with her grandparents as inspiration, who were pillars in their community, Cherish McMillan is exactly where she's meant to be. As an individual who enjoys the opportunity to educate others, especially in public speaking, she has always admired and inspired to be on the TEDx stage. Cherish builds and strengthens community through her work both in Washington County and beyond. Listen well, my friends, to this incredible entrepreneur, Cherish McMillan, as she shares information about success can be achieved by embracing failure. Cherish.
It was the spring, and I was a mid-distance runner on my school's track team. I was so excited. I was about to run my first race. My position in this race is called the anchor, and that's the last person to run in a relay race. For those of you who are not familiar with relay races, that is when a team of 4 people run the same distance
on the track, and they pass a baton to signify the progression of the race. The goal is to ensure that the last person crosses the finish line first. Now, I've done everything that I needed to do to be successful in my race. I'd gone to all my practices, I'd done all my drills. I was wearing my jersey, it was blue, kind of like the dress I have on today. I was wearing my spikes, those are specialized sneakers for running. And my team was in the lead. All I had to do was run us into victory. So my teammate was running towards me at lightning speed, hand stretched out with baton in her hand, and we're getting a new mic. Told you, a new.
Has touched your heart. So go ahead and chat just a minute with your neighbor while we're changing mics. That was great. Ticket? Did everybody get one when you came in this morning? Oh, here's a few that might need raffle tickets. It's amazing. Oh, you need one too? Okay, keep your hand up. We'll get some tickets for you. There will be a raffle at the end of the presentations, a few more. Perfect. Yeah. I can't tell you what the prize is, but it's amazing. Amazing. Yeah. Yeah. There's a few that need tickets. How are we doing? So you need to go off stage. Sorry, I need to introduce you again,
okay,
right?
All right.
So we'll get those raffle tickets to you for sure. Yeah, okay, so here's one. This young lady needs one, right? You wanna... So there's another few that need a ticket. I thought she was going to hand you the baton. I was excited. I know. Exactly. I'm sorry? So the raffle tickets are $5 a ticket or 5 for 20 for an arm, 20 for an arm. Thank you. 24 an arm. Chandra's arm, right? Chandra's arm. Right. Yeah. So anyone else? Raffle tickets? So Jessica, there's a few down here as well. These ladies right here in the second row. Yep. Good. And they'll be available, Jessica, for a while? Okay, okay. There's a few here? Yep. Anyone else for raffle tickets? Anyone else? They good? So I think we're ready for take two of Cherish McMillan. So with her grandparents as inspiration, who were pillars in the community, Cherish McMillan is exactly where she needs to be. As an individual who enjoys helping others develop, especially public speaking skills, she has always admired and aspired to be on the TEDx stage. Cherish builds and strengthens community both here in Washington County and beyond. Listen well, my friends, to this incredible entrepreneur, Cherish McMillan. Join me in a warm welcome to the stage when she talks about the notion of success can be achieved by embracing failure. Cherish. You got it.
It was the spring, and I was a mid-distance runner on my school's track team. I'd done everything I needed to do to succeed in my race. I was so excited. I was prepared to run my first ever relay race. In this relay race, I was what's called the anchor, and that means I was the last person to run. Those of you who are not familiar with relay races, that's when a team of 4 people run the same distance on a track and pass a baton off to the next person to signify that the race is progressing. Well, I had my jersey on, and it was blue, kind of like the dress that I'm wearing today. I was wearing my spikes. Those are specialized sneakers that are used for when you're running. And all I had to do was run my team into victory because we were already in first place. My teammate was running towards me at lightning speed, hand stretched out, prepared to hand me the baton, and I was ready to catch it. I took off, and I was running, and I was just so excited because our team was in the lead. Well, that's until I got curious and wanted to know what was going on around me. So I turned and looked back, and everyone ran past me. I'd never seen anyone run that fast in my life. At this point, our team was in last place. And during these times, people did a chant in the crowd to signify that this kind of thing happened to you. You know, just to let you know that everyone passed you or several runners ran past you. And it went a little something like this. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And I heard that dreaded chant on that day. I was so disappointed in myself. Not only did I lose the race, but I'd let my team down. I still had a full lap and a half to run, and I had to complete the race. I failed, and we lost that race. And I had no clue how I could possibly recover from such a disastrous fail. But it was in my failure that I learned life lessons about success. I learned that it is important to lean into failure while pursuing success, because the failure is absolutely necessary to prepare you to receive the success that is coming your way. To make it clearer, failure is only a stop on your journey to success. And failure is absolutely necessary because it refines you in ways that success cannot. It teaches you lessons about yourself and life that you can apply to your future. And I'm here to tell you that success can be achieved by embracing failure. You have to use the tools that you already have inside of you to successfully do this. Those three tools are focus, commitment, and resilience. Now, let's talk about focus. I love to travel, and I am what I like to call directionally challenged. That means I absolutely need the navigation system when I'm traveling in my car. It is not an option. I have to have it. When I'm traveling on foot, I need to have the written instructions in front of me. And I always make sure that I have all of these things. And somehow, I still get lost. Every time I get lost, I experience extreme panic. And then I take a moment and I take a deep breath. And I ask myself the question, where am I? This is the question I want you to ask yourself today. Where am I? And where do I want to go? This is significant and extremely important for you to check in with yourself and where you are on your journey so that you can figure out how to refocus yourself and get back on track. See, the reason I typically get lost, in spite of having all the tools that I need to successfully reach my destination, is because I lose focus. I get distracted by anything, honestly. And sometimes when I'm on these journeys in my car or I'm walking, there may not be a signal for me to use that wonderful feature called rerouting. And I have to reach out and ask for help. Know that it's okay to ask for help when you need it. Because sometimes, although you may have all the knowledge and all the information you need to succeed, you need to bring someone else in with you to support you in getting back on track and reaching your goal. Now, every time I have these moments where I'm feeling lost and I don't know where to go, I experience what I like to call happy accidents. That's when unexpected, great things happen to you that were unplanned on your journey. And this can be literal while you're traveling or metaphorically speaking about your life. While traveling and experiencing these happy accidents, I've been able to see some amazing scenery. I've been able to experience wonderful festivals and discover some amazing shops. That's important to me because I like to shop and getting awesome things, and I want you to know that it's okay to have fun, even when you lose focus and feel lost, because some of the most beautiful things can come from that. And although we can turn around and get back on track on our journey to success, I want you to know that we can do that metaphorically in life as well. We may not be able to literally turn around and go back in time and change things, but you can turn things around and do things differently in your future in moving forward. And when you do get lost and you successfully reach your destination, because even when we get lost and off track, we can still succeed, I want you to make sure that you remember the information that you learned while on that journey, because now you have experience to draw from. When you see signs of yourself getting off track or you see signs of yourself potentially failing, you can refer back to where you were previously and access that moving forward. Now, let's talk about commitment. This is the next tool that we're going to use as we reframe our perspective of failure on our journey to success. Now, I am a fitness instructor. Don't get excited. That is not to make you believe that I love fitness, because I do not. I absolutely cannot stand it. It's not fun to me. I don't enjoy it. However, I do love the results. And as an instructor, I always tell my class to commit to the workout you came to do. We did not wake up before the world to come and cheat ourselves. I always remind my class of this, and I want to remind you of this as well. My favorite format for exercise is HIT. HIT is an acronym that stands for High Intensity Interval Training. The purpose of this format of exercise is to literally push yourself to the point of failure. Now let's take a moment and think. Why on earth would we want to push ourselves to the point of failure? As my uncle would say, I'm glad you asked. When we push ourselves to the point of failure, we are able to discover things about ourselves that we did not know before. We're able to access strength within ourselves that we did not realize that we already had. See, when you do HIT workouts, the purpose is to break your muscles down so they are forced to recover and build back up. That is what happens to you when you pursue purposeful failure in your life. And I want you to know that when you succeed in moving past that failure and overcoming those challenges that you face in your life, you'll be able to say, as Sha'Carri Richardson puts it, I'm not back, I'm better. This is what I want for you in your life. And this is what we will do together in our lives. Now, let's talk about resilience. Yes. So I like to have a good time, and I like to dance and laugh and all of that good stuff. And I met an awesome man at a party. Oh, he was just so great. I mean, he checked all the boxes. Listen, we got to know each other, and we learned that we both liked each other, and so we started officially dating, had all the lovey-dovey stuff going on, and it was just wonderful. Let me help you understand a little bit more. My mother told me that she saw I was so in love with this man that he could tell me the moon was made of blue cheese. And I would believe him. No, I'm serious. I would really believe this man. I was so in love with him. And that is what made it so devastating. When I learned that we disagreed on a foundational value of mine. Now, there were red flags before I learned this particular thing, but I ignored them. I was wearing the lenses of fantasy, but at this moment, I had to accept and embrace the perspective of reality, and it hurt. That relationship failed. And even though I knew that it would fail and I saw all the stop signs along the way, I ignored them all because I wanted the relationship to work so bad. But it was in this experience that I learned that it's okay for relationships to fail. And I learned that everything in life does not work out. And guess what? That's okay. And as a result of this relationship, I was able to learn things about myself that were great. And I also learned about some areas that I needed to grow in. That didn't make me super happy, but it allowed me to improve as a person. Not only that, I learned some things that I wanted to keep in future relationships and things that I wanted to keep out for future relationships. And I want you to know that in spite of failures that you experience in your life, you can rise above that and you can overcome it. See, this is the thing about failure. It's personal. And it hurts. Like romantic relationships, it hurts. It breaks your heart because sometimes we suffer in silence. And with the same intensity that you have when you're feeling that hurt, I want you to make sure you have that same intensity when you celebrate your victory, when you celebrate your wins. This is how Confucius put it. Our greatest glory is not in never failing, but in rising every time we fail. And that's what we will do. We will rise every time we fail. See, resilience is absolutely necessary while on your journey to success because failure is inevitable. It is part of the journey. And it is a common experience amongst mankind. And I want you to know that you have not crossed the finish line of life. You are not finished. It is not over for you. Just because you failed in this endeavor does not mean you will not succeed in the future. Please lean into your failure. Please embrace those experiences because every failure holds the promise of a lesson learned and a better tomorrow. And you can shift your perspective and mindset when it comes to failure by accessing those 3 tools that you already have inside of you: focus, commitment, and resilience. Focus, commitment, and resilience. Failure prepares you to succeed. I will say it one more time. If you do not remember anything else that I said to you today, remember that failure prepares you to succeed. Thank you.
You rocked that out, lady. So I really think we're all ready to speak in public after that one, right? So thank you, Cherish, for sharing your talent with us for sure. So our next speaker has been recognized as a leader and data consultant. She is a consummate visionary who loves connecting the dots, and she's passionate about everything technology. Melissa Drew is a fierce, accomplished professional who is excited about successful transformation process, many of which she's played a significant role in the past. After this gig, actually, she aspires to be the oldest person speaking on the TED stage as she turns 100 years young, a long, long time from now. Join me in enthusiastically welcoming Melissa Drew, talking about the AI literate global citizen. Melissa?
All right, before we begin, mic check. Mike, everybody can hear it? Just double checking. All right, before we begin, I'm going to ask 2 questions from the audience because my topic is on AI, which is artificial intelligence. How many people in this room, and it's okay, be honest, raise your hands if you feel comfortable that you know what artificial intelligence really is? Okay. All right. Second question. How many of you feel comfortable that you interact with AI on a day-to-day basis? All right, fantastic. Then this is going to be a good one. Every day, globally, we create 120 zettabytes of data. It has become necessary that we use artificial intelligence just so we can process big data so that we can generate more questions with more answers with a high level of confidence. But yet in 2023, the survey by the Pew Research Center found that 44% of Americans don't believe that they interact with AI on a regular basis. Let's go back. Yet in 2023, by the Pew Research Center Foundation, 44% of Americans do not believe that they interact regularly with AI. AI is already here. It is embedded in everything that you do on a day-to-day basis, whether you realize it or not. Now, often it has no major impact. Recommendations for online shopping, your home security system sending you notifications, or maybe that fitness app that you're wearing that monitors your sleeping patterns. But what about who determines who receives a credit card, a mortgage, or the diagnostic results in your x-rays? AI technologies are used in every one of those scenarios, and those decisions can have a major impact on how we live our lives. For example, in 2020, the study with the Journal of Internal Medicine found that some hospitals who use kidney transplant software to prioritize recipients had discriminated against non-white male patients. Now, this bias was because of the data training the software included information from almost all white male patients. Therefore, no other demographic was considered in those prioritization results. Should we be concerned? If you are, you're not alone. AI technologies use AI models, which are mathematical algorithms. It is an interface or a chatbot that gives us human-like responses to our questions. But there's a perception that if we're using AI technologies, then it must be trustworthy because a machine was involved. But the opposite is more likely because it was a human that collected the data, and it was a human that trained and tested the results that enabled the machine to answer those questions. Often, we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what questions to ask, and if we are asking questions, we're not entirely sure if we're asking the right ones. This is why AI literacy for the global citizen is absolutely critical today. An AI literate citizen is someone who knows what and how much data they are creating. It is someone who feels confident that how their personal data is being stored, shared, deleted, and sold to a third party. It is someone who understands that their data is being used in a way that you understand that it's being, An AI literate citizen is someone who knows what and how much data is being created on a day-to-day basis. It is someone who recognizes how their personal data is being stored, shared, deleted, and sold to a third party. It is someone who feels confident that they know how that information is being consumed on a day-to-day basis in the products and services that you're interacting with. But more importantly, it's understanding its limitations, because all those products and services you're consuming, they're only as good as the data used to train them. Let's take ChatGPT version 4. That was released this year in March of 2023. Now, ChatGPT is a chatbot, that human interface. It's answering questions with human-like responses. Earlier this year, a US senator made news because he used ChatGPT to automatically generate his entire speech for an opening statement on a Senate hearing on the topic of generative AI. Now, I asked ChatGPT, give me a short, funny poem about losing a puppy written by a 10-year-old girl. I got the responses back in less than 10 seconds. And I have to admit, the feedback and the response was far better than what I could have created on my own. But there's two important things that we need to listen here. Two things that's going to be critical in how you think about AI going forward. One, the data used to train ChatGPT version 4 was mostly used from publicly available data, like the internet. You contributed to training ChatGPT version 4. You contributed to the 120 zettabytes of data that's created every day from your likes, your posts, your uploads of videos and articles that you're writing. Two, the data used to train ChatGPT 4 stopped as of September 2021. But yet it was released this year in 2023. This data creates an understanding that my results were used from information prior to 2021, which means that anything after 2021 wasn't considered in my answers, which also means, depending on the question I'm asking, the results could be obsolete, they could be inaccurate, or just completely wrong. But understanding these limitations is what helps us know what questions to ask. There's another perception around AI technologies that we're losing a lot of jobs because AI is taking away some of those positions. And there's another perception that women are being more impacted by those job losses. We are losing more jobs. I will admit that. The answer is yes. We are losing more jobs to AI technologies than ever before, but we're gaining more jobs than what we're losing. And those women who have been on the internet referenced in losing their jobs in marketing and HR functions, it is the same women that are being hired by those startups to train and test those AI models, which is then automating the marketing and HR functions. Women are leading the way in those new jobs. They're accepting positions as data scientists, quality assurance, and chief data officers. But more importantly, women are building data and AI organizations from the ground up in the private sector. But it's in the public sector where women are outnumbering men in health, education, and public administrative positions. 63% women to 37% men. And it's in the public sector that's really, really important, because here is where AI policies and regulations are being debated and written and enforced. And it's here where AI regulations are going to be explored and communicated to the rest of the world. Even today, we still don't have clear policies and regulations around AI that would ensure confidence in how AI is being used. But in the public sector, we're sharing information in local and federal agencies, which is going to impact security, transportation, and trust. So why are women having so much influence in the AI sector? Women are problem solvers. They explore the unknown. They are willing to seek out new information. This resiliency and their ability to adapt, this is what allows women to become and continue to be a force in the AI sector today, tomorrow, and beyond. But more importantly, it is why women are going to be the influencer in how we all understand how to become a better informed AI global citizen. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa, for encouraging us to speak our minds, to influence our industries, and to always ask for what we want. As our program continues, I'm happy to welcome Melissa Noel to the stage, who, by the way, likes everything and anything pumpkin. As a thriving entrepreneur, Melissa notes that both COVID and the aging process have changed her for the better. She is now more vocal, more involved in the community, and is excited about getting a political science degree at University of Maryland Global Campus. One of the biggest challenges that she's faced as a business owner is being taken seriously by other business people, especially men. Listen well to her talk, Bringing Home the Bacon. Melissa. Yeah.
We live in a society today where women are told to be one of two things. We either need to be tough, but not too tough. Have a voice in the room, but don't be too loud. Why is it that women are to be perceived as either being tough as nails or soft and nurturing? Why can't we be both? That's a picture of me, pre-cell phone era. And it was taken on the last day of my employment when I worked for an insurance company. I was really naive back then. How naive was I? Well, one time when I was driving to work in the pouring rain, my windshield wipers quit working. So I pulled over to the side of the road. A gentleman pulled in right behind me and offered to give me a ride. I jumped right in the car with him. Don't worry, I took safety precautions. I actually said to him, "You're not an axe murderer, are you?" And he actually said no, and I believed him. It was not my finest moment. I had just secured a position working for a construction company that my husband had been employed at for 20 years. The advice I was given upon being employed there by the vice president went something like this. He said, "You need to have thick skin to work here." Fair enough. But my immediate supervisor told me once, when I was simply trying to learn a new skill, to sit down and shut up. You're a secretary, and that's all you will ever be. The little bit of self-confidence that I did have was gone. It was replaced with self-doubt. The environment was one in which women played a role. There were no women executives at this company. We were expected to get the coffee, do the filing, not complain, and smile at the male staff. And I did play that role. Sexual advice or sexual harassment was an everyday occurrence, to the point I no longer recognized myself. Self-doubt was gone, and I began to actually hate myself. Every day I would ask myself on my way home why I played into that scenario. You see, the women in that office competed for the attention of the men. It's how you gain favor within the office environment. After several years, I finally quit. I decided I was more. Now, after leaving that environment, I went back to working in insurance. That office was mainly women, and there was one man. He was my boss. I was the office manager. One of my responsibilities was to go get the office supplies. He insisted on driving me. He had one of those Hummers that was popular back in the early 2000s. It had a really large front seat. As we were driving to the supply store, he patted the seat, and he said, "Slide over here next to me." He then began telling me about how he wished his wife was more like me. You know what thought I had at that moment? How stupid was I to wear a skirt to work that day? I was mad at myself. I made up an excuse and I left. I did not even give 2 weeks' notice. Now, the women in that environment, they were the actual mean girls. The clique was formed before I even walked in the door. What's the common scenario between these two situations? It wasn't just the blatantly bad behavior of the men I worked with, it was also the behavior of the women. You see, the men's behavior was humiliating, but the women's behavior was isolating. There was no solidarity. I felt alone. Now I am the CEO and co-owner of a construction company. The irony. I currently have on staff 8 women. They hold the roles of executive, designer, and several administrative staff. In the past, I have hired laborers, women laborers. Their gender does not determine their ability to do their job. Stereotypical phrases that I've heard. "Oh, isn't that nice? You work for your husband. How's your husband's business doing?" Recently, I told somebody my husband was going to retire in the next couple of years. They said, "What will you do with your free time?" I don't know, twiddle my thumbs? I've been called honey, sweetie, and a variety of names that I will not repeat while I'm on stage. And those names, I was called those names when I was simply being assertive. You know, the boss. None of these words or situations are unique to me, and I'm betting most of you can relate. And I really wish that wasn't our common factor. Ladies, we are not in competition with one another. It is time to stop nurturing our self-doubt by casting our insecurities on other women in the room, and start nurturing our self-confidence by being the women who lead the room. We need to put an end to the mean girl mentality and celebrate the accomplishments of the women around us. We cannot continue to champion for equal rights and equality if we can't get out of our own way. Be the voice in the room. If you see someone sitting there and they're not speaking, they might have been told to sit down and shut up. Simply say to them, hey, what are your thoughts? You don't know what made them go silent. Draw your boundaries. Know what behavior you're no longer going to tolerate in your life and stick to it. Learn from other women in your circle, and then expand your circle and learn from other women in the community. And we need men to step up. You see, that guy who told me to sit down and shut up, well, we ran into him many years later in an elevator. He had just left the office of a builder that we were going in to see. We were competing for the same contract. When he was in there seeing that builder, he said some pretty awful things about me, including insinuating that we had been involved. But that builder, he knew us. He told him to mind his P's and Q's, and he was not going to tolerate the smear tactics. We need more men to step up and stop behavior when they see it. We can foster an environment that encourages women to take on non-traditional roles in society. But let's not stop there. Let's educate the men in our lives on equality in those non-traditional roles and how to support the women in their lives to take on those career paths. The fact is, as women, we can bring home the bacon, fry it up, and swing a hammer. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa, for your encouragement to step up and take a risk and to be who we are meant to be always. And I wonder, as you listen to the speakers today, what risks are you ready to take in your individual, personal, and professional lives? So have you ever answered a work email during a pretty important family event? Anybody ever do something like that? Maybe one or two of us, right? Many of us can relate to the always-on work kind of culture. Ashley Whillans shares 3 practical steps for setting boundaries that stick in this 5-minute TED Talk.
For so many of us, myself included, our days feel filled with a million small interruptions. And this is true even of our days off. Maybe you've taken a call at the beach, texted your boss from the grocery store, or emailed a colleague while on a picnic with your family. We've convinced ourselves that these behaviors are no big deal. It's just one email. But there's a real cost to these interruptions, and there are smart strategies we can all take to better protect our time. These moments seem so small at the time, and yet research suggests they add up to a tremendous loss. The constant creep of work into our personal lives can increase our stress and undermine our happiness. So just what is the cost? In one study, researchers recruited parents who were visiting a science museum with their kids. Some parents were told to check their phone as much as possible, others were told to check their phone as little as possible. After the visit, parents who used their phones reported that the experience was significantly less meaningful. They also felt much lonelier. In another study, tourists who were asked to have their phones out while visiting an iconic church remembered fewer details a week later. And in my research, employees who were paid for their performance spent increasingly less time interacting with friends and family, and more time interacting with colleagues and clients. These constant interruptions come at a cost to organizations too. Companies lose 32 days of productivity each year to employee depression, which is often caused by the stress and burnout of our always-on culture. Despite knowing better, I too have found myself focusing on urgent work distractions over important life moments. Most recently, I found myself texting a client while in the middle of my first child's first ultrasound. Happy client, guilty mom-to-be. When you add up all of these moments, the sum total is a life shortchanged on meaning, joy, connection, and even memory. As we remake our models of work in the wake of the pandemic, now is our opportunity to create a new culture that respects time. And the way to make this really big change is through small steps that we can take right now. The first step that we need to take is to reframe rest. Reflect for a moment about what you think about when you hear the word rest. Sounds amazing, right? But in my mind, I immediately worry about not being productive enough or letting down my colleagues. When we do have time off, we need to find ways in which we can enjoy the present moment and savor the leisure time that we have available, as opposed to seeing it as an unproductive barrier to our work. One specific strategy we can take is to treat our upcoming weekend like a vacation. On Friday afternoon, jot down how you would act and behave as if you were on a holiday. Maybe you and your partner will buy a bottle of wine and watch online clips of the Eiffel Tower. Maybe you'll visit a local cafe and listen to some live music. Or maybe you'll go for a long walk in the middle of the day with no phone and no agenda. The plan doesn't have to be expensive or extravagant. Another strategy you can take is to create clear boundaries for your time off. Instead of saying, I'm out of the office, feel free to Slack me whenever, say, I'll be offline. Call me only if it's urgent. To uphold these personal goals, work together as a team. Set team goals for personal time. Do it publicly, collect data, and hold each other accountable. These goals could sound like, I will not check email between 6 and 8 p.m., I will have dinner with my family 4 nights a week, or I will go for a jog midday. Check in on your team's progress and see how everyone's doing. If you or your teammates are unsuccessful, work together to help accomplish personal goals. Lastly, you can negotiate for more time to prevent work from creeping into your personal life. In business school, I teach students to negotiate for salary, but realize I spoke almost nothing about negotiating for more time. What does this look like in practice? You can ask for more time on adjustable deadlines at work. If your client asks for a deliverable Monday morning, ask for an extension until Tuesday afternoon so you don't find yourself working on your well-deserved weekend. And don't worry too much about reputation. Quality truly is the metric that matters most. In my data, employees who proactively asked for more time reported lower levels of stress and burnout and were seen as more committed and professional by their colleagues. These are small but powerful changes to not only reframe rest, but to reclaim it. Once you discover the profound impact that these changes can have, you'll feel empowered to demand that others respect and accommodate your approach to time. Maybe they'll even feel inspired to piece together the fractured moments of their lives too.
Affectionately known as a TikTok queen, our next speaker, Kay Ellis, uses this social media platform extensively to share her story of recovery and growth. Steeped in spiritual tradition, she speaks from the heart and has found her tribe of supporters along the way who, with her, are helping others ignite their brightest futures. Welcome, Kay Ellis, to share her story of recovery and courage. With the title of her presentation, Addiction, the Enemy of Hope. Okay?
God has a way of stripping us from everything to get our attention. People, places, and things Standing here in front of you is the gift that recovery gave me 13 years ago. Any idea what these are? Was I a writer, a personal assistant, a planner? These are planners that chronicle my addiction to prescription painkillers from 2000 to 2010. I was doctor shopping and pharmacy hopping. I was involved in drug diversion. I was going from doctors from state to state, hopping on flights. Doctors were writing prescriptions for every ailment, giving out opioids like candy. My life was like the movie Catch Me If You Can. Every time I walked into a pharmacy, the cops were called, and I walked out. Prescription fraud was very easy for me back in the 2000s. I never resorted to street drugs, yet that very legality allowed me to justify my substance use for close to a decade. In 2022, 300 Americans died from an overdose every single day. That's a staggering 109,680 human souls. According to the CDC, I am one of the estimated 20.5 million Americans living in recovery today. Recovery is possible. I grew up in a small town in a happy home. My dad was an elder. My mom was an usher. We spent a lot of time in church, Bible study, choir rehearsal, every type of church event, we were there. And I was a bully kid. My family was very loving. They did everything they could to protect me from the bullies. I thought I was ugly because I had thick glasses, I was skinny, and had a raspy voice, as I still do. My parents did everything they could, but guess what? My love for music and my passion for fashion drowned out all the noise from the bullies. I graduated high school in 1991, and I turned from an ugly duckling to a beautiful swan. I loved fashion. Every piece of clothing that I owned was Donna Karan. I wore so much Donna Karan that everyone started calling me Dinky. And of course today, what am I wearing? Donna Karan. After high school, I moved to Philly. My life was great. I landed a job that I really loved as a therapeutic support staff with autistic children. One day, at my client's school, his music class was located inside of a church basement. A tumble down a church stairwell would change my life forever. I wound up having to get surgery for a torn meniscus to my knee. I'd never gotten surgery before. After the procedure, I went home with a prescription for Lorcet hydrocodone. The doctor gave me 120 of them. I had never did drugs in my life. The doctor said, take one every 4 to 6 hours. I did. And then at some point, I started noticing a different feeling that I was getting. I felt happy. I felt motivated. I loved them. I loved them right away. So guess what I did? I started taking more. For what reason, I don't know. I went from 1 every 4 to 6 hours as prescribed to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 and sometimes up to 6 pills at once. I didn't understand body tolerance. When you start taking an opioid, and the more you take, the more you need to come back to that feeling you started with. My goal became to get more. And then there was an unexplained sickness that I started getting. I didn't know what that was. I come to know it as withdrawal. Brutal. So I was desperate. So guess what? I started shopping for doctors like my shoes in the yellow pages. Who remember the yellow pages? That's how old I am. I'm in the yellow pages looking for doctors. Then I'm driving around in my car in random neighborhoods trying to find doctors. My life had changed. And at some point, I realized that I wasn't even taking them for the knee pain anymore. I was taking them because I needed them. I was actually faking at this point because I think my knee healed by then. So I was walking around with this ridiculous big blue knee brace on, and I kept wearing that for pity. I was very, very sick. I started isolating myself from everyone. Isolation is a big part of substance use disorder. People totally don't want to be around people. I was depressed. I couldn't explain what was happening to me. I didn't have someone advocating for me. I wanted to kill myself when I ran out of pills. And guess what? These planners here are my life. This is how I kept track of all my doctors, how many pills a week I was getting, the pharmacies I was going to, what doctor was I going to see. These planners chronicled my addiction. I was traveling from city to state. I was hopping on flights, going to see doctors for pills. I was desperate. I was possessing a flooring 1,000 pills a month or more. My body was fragile. My face was skeletal. I was 97 pounds. One of my doctors thought I was anorexic. So he said, Miss Ellis, we're going to give you some Insure Plus nutritional drinks. They'll help you get your weight back. So I said, okay. So he wrote me a script. And then, me with my savvy thoughts, I had a friend that worked at a store, and she said, we sell Insure there. So I said, is the SKU number the same? She said, yeah. So I took it to her store and sold them for cash. And then I used that cash to get more pills. Has anyone ever had a life or death situation where you had an aha moment? The thing about an aha moment is you have a moment, a second, or minute to make a life-changing decision. But sometimes we don't choose to act on that because it's scary and it's frightening. We don't know what to expect. I had 3 aha moments throughout my addiction that should have shaken me up by my bootstraps. But guess what? They didn't. Addiction is powerful. I'm going to tell you my aha moments. Aha moment 1, the doctor visit. One day, I fake limped up with that blue knee brace. I fake limped up the doctor's steps to go into the office. His office looked like a house. I limped up the steps. I went inside. I was going through withdrawal really bad. I wanted my pills. The doctor looked at me and said, Miss Ellis, we're concerned for your life. I looked at him like, what? He said, we got your urine sample back. And we looked at it, and we found 3 times the amount of hydrocodone that we're prescribing you in your urine. How are you still standing? Miss Ellis, I'm going to need you to go to the ER right away. Your urine looks like someone had overdosed. Aha moment 2, pill bottles in a trash bag. One day, I was going through withdrawal, and I thought I dropped pills in the closet in my jacket. I'm frantically in my closet, tearing everything up, throwing stuff around. Then I come upon a trash bag. I opened it. It was a green trash bag full of empty pill bottles. They had different dates, different doctors' names, and different pharmacies. Aha moment 3, my hearing loss. I don't know any person that ever went deaf from opioids, but I did. I did. First, it started with ringing and muffling sounds in my ear. And then an audiologist asked me, do you have any family history of hearing loss or drug use? I said, no to both. I was in denial. He said, okay, we're going to fit you for hearing aids for a little bit of time and see if they work. I got fitted for hearing aids, and guess what? They worked for 3 months. And then one day I woke up on my couch, and guess what? I couldn't hear nothing. I was deaf, nothing at all. I was so obsessed with chasing my pills that my hearing loss didn't even faze me. Addiction is so powerful. You could lose everything and still want the drug. Every year, this got worse and worse and worse for me. It never gets better when you're suffering with substance use disorder. I was being sought out by the DEA. DEA. I was scared for my life. One day, I went into a pharmacy with a forged script. They called the cops, and like catch me if you can, I walked out. I was desperate, and I was scared. The biggest fear for me was to go to the feds and cold turkey in jail. My back was up against the wall. I was desperate. I lost all my doctors at once. Literally, like 10 or 15 of my doctors, I lost them. I knew something had to change. So guess what? I looked up at the sky, and I had a conversation with God. I said, I can't do this no more. My recovery journey began that hot August night. I will never forget it. I realized I was helpless, and I surrendered. It's so much power behind surrendering. It's so much power behind putting your hand up and saying, I can't do this. I'm helpless. Can you help me? Guess what? Some months later, I started feeling sick. I go to the ER, feeling weird. Guess what I found out? That at 41, I was having my first child. I looked at the doctor and said, what? How did this happen? How was this possible? I was having my first baby at 41. So guess what? I felt these little feet in my belly, and I was like, oh, this is crazy. I loved it. I did everything right. My prenatal appointments, everything. And then I cried a lot because I figured to myself, how can I be a good mom for my kid? I can't hear him. Then, in my 24th week, I started having these pains that I never felt before. I wanted to kill myself. So I go to the ER, and after 4 trips to the ER, the doctor said to me, you're having Braxton Hicks. I looked at him and said, Tony Braxton did what? I was mad. You know, in labor, you be ready to knock something out. The doctor told me they were false contractions. I never heard of them before. Guess what? I delivered my baby on the back of an ambulance on a cool, cloudy March 24th day. Then I get his birth certificate back, and I look at it. It say place of birth, ambulance squad, Route 38 and Hartford Road. My baby was a gift from God. He was in the NICU for 6 months before I could bring him home. Not only did I get the gift of my son, but a NICU doctor told me about cochlear implants. I had never heard of them before. 5-hour procedure. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go for it. I want to hear my baby's voice. So guess what? The first time I heard his voice, he was 2 years old. I was holding him in my arms, and I was singing to him. I said, Mommy, love you. He looked at me like, what? I said, Mommy, love you. And he looked at me crazy. So I started kissing him all over his face. Then he said, bubbles, bubbles, bubbles. I was like, oh my God. That was the happiest day of my life, hearing his little big mouth. I just want to say that my dad passed away in 2017, and he called my son the Reverend Wright Houston Love Ellis. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, the Reverend Wright Houston Love Ellis. Today, we stand here, we're celebrating life, love, and recovery. We can recover from anything. We have seen many moments that felt like ends. Our lives consisted of timing, turmoil, and testimony. Whatever you're going through is not who you are. Do you understand that? You too can survive and thrive. Recovery is not a one-size-fits-all. It's not. There are many pathways to recovery. And guess what? The first step is surrendering. Put your hand up. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to let you go. Never, never give up on yourself. If you have people suffering with substance use disorder, please know they can overcome it. We do recover.
Thank you, Kay, for those inspiring words. And what a great way to end the in-person program today, don't you think? We've heard from some amazing speakers today who have shared their story of 2 steps forward. As you take time to reflect and move forward, keep in mind the journeys of these 7 amazing women as you take your next purposeful and intentional steps as a leader in your community. Remember, choice is always your superpower. We want to, thank you. We want to take just a couple minutes to thank those folks who have been partners in this program today. Certainly thanks to the Washington County Commission for Women with partnering with these events and these people for sure. Thank you to Hagerstown Community College and Dr. Jim Klauber and the Board of Directors for the use of this facility. And thanks to the Kepler Theater staff for their tireless support of our speakers as we prepared for today. And thanks too for Antietam Media Services for their work to make this happen. And thank you, each individual and unique human being who chose to be part of this event today. May you continue to grow, to learn, and to come into your own as powerful women and men. We appreciate your online audience as well. Stay well and flourish where you are always. So we're going to take a minute just to pause the recording and to get ready for our drawing for the raffle. And now there are 3 winners today. So we just want to draw the raffle tickets, announce our winners, and then we'll invite you to come out and